Welcome to South Asia Today, a show that provides you the glimpses of South Asia. I'm your host Yeshi. Here are the headlines. India-US commit to contain China's unilateral advancements in Indo-Pacific. Aeon Group companies providing scholarship to Asian students in Japanese universities. And the iconic Indian mythological play Ram Leela begins amid festive fervour across the country. Let's begin the show. In view of China's growing economic coercion and its belligerent tactics to bully its neighbours, India and the US are strengthening their strategic partnership at breakneck speed. Whether it is through bilateral cooperation, the Quad grouping or other multiferous platforms, the two have reiterated their commitments of confronting Beijing's agenda that is principally based on intruding sovereign lands, colonizing countries through debt trap or flexing muscles against smaller nations. No wonder Beijing is rattled and has further stepped up its designs.
It's not just the rapidly expanding trade and the arms sales that is bringing New Delhi and Washington closer, but a growing Chinese threat in the Indo-Pacific, including its unilateral bid at expansionism, control over major trade routes on both land and sea, and its hostile intrusions in others' territories that has prompted a robust alliance to counter it all. This alliance of the oldest and the largest democracies, India and the US, is committed to containing China's unprincipled and, in some cases, outrightly illegal claims. While the first in-person Quad summit a few days ago had laid the groundwork for the future course of action vis-à-vis rules-based global order and operations in the Indo-Pacific, the recent visit of Deputy US Secretary of State Wendy Sherman clearly underlined how things were going to unfold if Beijing didn't rein in its intolerable designs.
We will challenge China where we must, where it undermines our interests, the interests of our partners and allies, or threatens the rules-based international order. I think we in India are like-minded in that regard.
This deepening partnership, however, is irritating the men in Chinese power corridors. Beijing's media mouthpieces have already been working overtime to discredit and malign the alliance. Apparently, it is the apprehension over the global superpower joining hands with an equal Chinese counterweight, India, that is driving them deranged. In an explosive report released earlier this year, the US State Department confirmed that China wants to constrain India's strategic partnership with the US, its allies, and other democracies as it perceives rising India as a rival. But despite all this, it is the Chinese who have grown increasingly aggressive in the last few months. A double-faced Chinese leadership has been rapidly expanding its airfield along India's Ladakh region, where two sides had agreed to disengage after multiple rounds of talks post a violent clash between the two sides. And now India, left with no option but to respond in the sole code of communication that Beijing comprehends, is ramping up border infrastructure, procuring weaponry, testing missiles, and is increasing its troops. S-400 anti-aircraft system is just weeks away from India's possession. While the Indian Army is consistently expanding its arsenal, the Indian Air Force is all set to increase the number of its fighting squadrons in the coming months.
The S-400 as per the contract and on schedule, hopefully should be inducted within this year, the first unit.
So definitely there has been an increase in their deployment in the forward areas. which remains, of course, a matter of concern for us. But we are regularly monitoring all their movements, and based on whatever inputs we get, we are also carrying out matching developments both in infrastructure as well in terms of the troops that are needed to counter any threat.
Amid all this, a US support both at the bilateral and multilateral level has rattled China. And not just China, its stooge in South Asia, Pakistan, which has been lately plotting and executing some of the most devious plans in the region, including the one in Afghanistan, is also worried at this evolving arrangement. The United States, which considered Pakistan an ally until a few months back, has terminated all forms of leadership-level communications in light of its role in the violent Taliban capture of Afghanistan. Pakistan's Foreign Ministry's correspondence with its embassy in the United States has revealed that it has grown desperate over the US president not considering even talking with Pakistan PM Imran Khan. And the so-called great game in the region, which China and Pakistan thought they were in the driver's seat of, is unfolding differently, and to the displeasure and discomfort of the duo, it is going away from them.
Moving on, if one phrase could appropriately summarize the current Afghanistan situation, it would be out of cauldron into the fire. The humanitarian crisis that anyway prevailed before the Taliban assumed control of the country has gone further downhill. It's chaos and cries all around. Widespread unemployment, unprecedented displacement and brutal human rights violations at gunpoint are today's normal in Afghanistan. The Taliban, who promised a civil democratic administration, has clamped down on freedom of speech with severe high-handedness. Have a look at all of it in this report.
Braving an increasingly fearful atmosphere, a family wearing white shrouds, a traditional funeral wear, took to streets in Afghanistan's capital Kabul, demanding employment for hundreds of thousands unemployed workers. While this act would have been hailed in a democratic system for standing up to policies and failure of government, it's nothing like that in Taliban-ruled Afghanistan. The family, including the children, is behind the bars. And this is despite the poverty and hunger index worsening by the day in a country that is already suffering from drought and the COVID-19 pandemic. Thousands of Afghans are trying to flee their country every day from Zaranj, the smuggling capital in Afghanistan's Nimroz province, due to unemployment, poverty and uncertainty. Hundreds of families, including women and children, are waiting in restaurants and motels to get the chance to cross the border by a smuggler.
از بیکاری از همه چی به خاطر ایران روان است دیگه با 10 نفر از این مرز همیشه مجبوریت میکنم پس میخوام برم به ایران دیگه از اونی که طالبان اومدن نه کاری است نه جدباری است اصلا دولتی معلوم نیست که چی رقم دولتی است که باید دولت حکومتداری کنن اما چیزی هم که از جیب مردم است اونم میکشه برای خود میگیرن مردم گشنه و زار ضعیف مانده
500,000 Afghans have been displaced in Afghanistan in recent months. The number will grow several times if the health services, schools and the economy, which are on the verge of collapse, break down entirely. According to the United Nations, nearly half the population of more than 18 million people in Afghanistan require aid assistance to survive, while conflict and insecurity have displaced more than 3.5 million, with nearly 700,000 people uprooted this year alone. And while the unemployment has dipped to a historic low, the limited ones who have their businesses running are barely making their ends meet.
سابق کار بسیار خوب بود کارا پیش میرفت بعد مال بار میکرد هر رقم مال که میبود خلاص میشه دیگر پیسه 5 تا خشک میبرم شما فکر کنید دینار ما بار کردیم از کلی کراچی 2000 افغانی رو ما سودا نکردیم تا 2000 افغانی بعد 400 500 زیر ما خرج خانه بلیم فعلا صبحی نماز خواندیم کیلوی 90 افغانی ما گاز پر کردیم.
The future doesn't look bright, with most of the international donors freezing their assistance after the Taliban swept to power. Afghanistan also faces economic problems such as a cash liquidity crisis. A $606 million flash appeal launched in September to assist more than 10 million vulnerable Afghans is less than 40% funded. People are clueless as to who they should approach to get their issues resolved.
چه قسم عدالت است چه قسم مسلمانی است چه رقم پشت غریب غربت میگرده ما کجا که مرد کرایی بیاریم ما بگیم مرد داریم ما که 4 5 فامیل هستیم کل ما بی سرپرست هستیم.
And these are those tangible issues that are directly affecting the day-to-day lives. Rest of them, including a dwindling women workforce, strict imposition of Sharia, and a wide-ranging curb on fundamental rights, including the freedom of speech, have not even gathered enough traction owing to the crisis of food and shelter. The UN Human Rights Council has agreed to appoint a special rapporteur on Afghanistan to probe alleged violations and to maintain a spotlight on the country, especially on the rights of women and ethnic minorities living under Taliban rule. Critics call it a symbolic measure. And with hundreds of thousands of them already living under abject poverty in hostile conditions, the fears of the worst humanitarian crisis exploding out of the situation could any day become true.
Now we take a look at some happenings in Asia in a segment called Asia Watch.
Bangkok kicked off the first day of Pfizer vaccinations for high school students in the capital on ahead of the school reopenings in November. Nearly 90% of over 35,000 students have registered for vaccination. Bangkok hoped to distribute both doses by end of October, according to Bangkok Metropolitan Administration Governor Ashwin Kwanmoang. Daily confirmed COVID-19 cases in Thailand fell below 10,000 on this week for the first time since mid-July. The country has administered 55.5 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines so far, fully inoculating about 31% of the population. A vintage vehicle lover organized an exhibition in India's western Pune city to create awareness on the maintenance of vintage beauties. Vineet Kenjale, who owns over 550 varieties of two-wheelers, organized the exhibition along with the other vintage lovers, where vehicles ranging from 100-year-old cars and bikes used in the Second World War were on display. The two-day exhibition was aimed at educating people about the government's scrap policy that says old vehicles need to clear a test for re-registration and vehicles older than 15 years should be scrapped.
Moving on, Japan's Aeon Group has been supporting foreign students financially. A number of Asian students have been pursuing several courses in top Japanese universities. That's going to be our pick from Japan this week. And in another story showcasing the quintessential Japanese culture, we will focus on the indigenous soy sauce that has traveled the world and is loved by all.
Kikkoman. A Japanese soy sauce is a universal seasoning. The naturally brewed soy sauce is not only used for Japanese cuisine, but is cherished in many countries around the world. Founded in 1917, Kikkoman Corporation is based in Noda City of Japan's Chiba Prefecture. It produces soy sauce and other food seasoning to make the delicacies around the world more appetizing.
The original form of soy sauce was introduced from China in 1200s. And like other things introduced from China, soy sauce was modified to fit Japanese food culture after 400 years since the original soy sauce was introduced. About the same time, our founding family started soy sauce manufacturing. Mogi, Takanashi, and Horikiri family had a great role in terms of development of the soy sauce industry in the region. Noda locates close to the major production area of our raw materials, which means soybeans, wheat, and salt. And between two major rivers, Tone River and Edo River, and we utilize those waterways for our business. So we gather our raw materials by using Tone River, and we ship product to Edo City by using Edo River. It took us only half a day to deliver our product to Edo. 8 family-owned brewing company decides to merge into one corporation in 1917. It was a great idea because then we could enjoy a larger capital, which means we can invest in major project. We ship out our product from that new manufacturing facility in 1925, 80 years after merger.
During the World War II, the soy sauce industry faced decline. However, Kikkoman preserved its original method of producing soy sauce.
Kikkoman's R&D department came up with the new method so that we could produce much larger quantity of soy sauce out from same amount of soybean. And if we monopolize that method, we could be only surviving soy sauce manufacturing company in Japan now. But we decide differently. We open up that patent to the soy sauce industry free on charge. So we saved the soy sauce industry.
Kikkoman's century-old method of making soy sauce enriches world's food culture. The International University of Japan, or IUJ, is located in Niigata Prefecture. It's a global university where every student speaks English as a common language, and foreign students can study Japanese based on their requirement. International University of Japan welcomed new students on October 1. This year, 189 students from 53 countries took admission in the university. Due to coronavirus pandemic, most of these students cannot attend the welcome ceremony, but they joined virtually. Aeon 1% Club Scholarship is based on the principle that the major Aeon Group companies donate 1% of their pre-tax profits to contribute to the society and global tie. 2 students from Vietnam and Indonesia supported by Aeon 1% Club Scholarship through their virtual participation.
We only put it in the landfill, and then there is no kind of recycle technology. That's why we need to learn, Vietnamese people need to learn more about the experience in Japan and then try to apply.
Aeon が新しいことを学び、人とつながることを愛するとして、子どものための森の精神の癒しプロジェクト、災害救援、植樹、地元の森林プログラムなどをイオン 1% クラブプロジェクトに参加する機会があれば、私は信じられないほど幸せです。
世界を学び、日本を学ぶ、そういう場だというふうに、我々規定しておりまして、その意味は世界標準の理論をきちっと学んでグローバルな活躍のできる人。日本を学ぶの方は、日本のことをちゃんと学んでもらって、日本の友人に将来長くなってほしい。その2つのタイプの人材をぜひ育てたいと。いろんな国で日本を本学で知って日本の友人になってくれる人がたくさん出たっていうそういう国にしたい。
Second grade students supported by Aeon 1% Club Scholarship have enjoyed study and various activity to absorb deep knowledge.
国際友達もたくさんできて、友達と一緒に料理して、そしてスポーツも一緒にやって、それは一番楽しいかなと思います。
I'm studying international relations, so that allow me to focus and understand the regional politics as well as global politics. IUJ has a lot of unique faculty from different backgrounds and studies, as well as it has a great study materials and support facilities. It supports me tremendously well during my studies right now.
ION's principle is to establish world circles steadily and develop future global talents.
Moving on, India's colourful culture is at its best during the 10 days long Navratri and Ram Leela celebrations held across the country. The festivals are celebrated in a different way, where few mark the victory of good over evil. Similarly, Ram Leela depicts the life of Lord Ram, who defeated Ravan, the demon king of Sri Lanka, and it is performed to coincide with 9 nights Navratri. The scene of Ravan's execution is enacted in the form of a dramatic folk play known as Ram Leela, which has still recollected its fascination over the years among all. Take a look. One of the widely performed traditional art plays, the 10-day Ram Leela play, has started across India. Ram Leela is chiefly enacted to celebrate Lord Ram's victory over Ravan and to give out the message that good always trumps over evil. Every year, Ram Leela is staged during the 9-night Hindu festival of Navratri. Lord Ram, one of the incarnations of Lord Vishnu and Ayodhya Prince, is known for showing the path of righteousness to his devotees. According to Hindu mythology, it is believed that Ravan, the king of Lanka, now known as Sri Lanka, captured Sita, who was later rescued by her husband Ram after defeating the evil king.
एक साल का गैप अवश्य आया है, लेकिन उस एक साल में हमने पूरी तैयारियां की हैं कि जब भी आए भव्य तरीके से आए। 40 नए गाने इस भव्य रामलीला में लाए गए हैं नए, और 10 से 15 सीन में लाए गए हैं। बहुत सारे सुंदरता से गाने दिखाए जाएंगे, डांस परफॉर्मेंसेस होंगी और 5 नए विमान इसमें दिखाए जाएंगे। तो तैयारी बहुत जोरों शोरों से है।
As per the beliefs, this staging of Ramayana is based on the Ramcharitramanas, one of the most popular storytelling forms in the north of the country. This sacred text devoted to glory of Ram, the hero of the Ramayana, was composed by Tulsidas in the 16th century in a form of Hindi in order to make the Sanskrit epic available to all. It is generally performed in open space on a large platform. It sets up a great show with modern illumination and technology. The audiences were spellbound after they saw the creative play in the form of poetic recitation, dohas with devotional songs. Last year, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Ram Leela was either cancelled or went online. However, this year include placement of chairs with at least 5 feet distance, no entry into the premises without wearing a mask, and the ground will be sanitized after every performance.
कोरोना का चक्कर चल रहा है ना, और फिर यहाँ पाबंदी भी है काम, जिस हिसाब से अनुमति दी गई है इसको मत और घमंड दूर हो जाता है, दी गई है अनुमति। फिर आपकी तो बात ही क्या है, जानबूझ के कम रखा है दर्शकों।
It is believed the festival of Navratri is a significant Hindu festival that is observed over 9 nights and 10 days, in which 9 forms of goddess Durga are worshipped. During the sacred period of Navratri, people observe fast and some restrict their diet to fruit and vegetables, spurning meat, onions and garlic. Navratri culminates on the 10th day, coinciding with Dashera festival with the killing of demon king Ravan, signifying the victory of good over evil. It's time for me to wrap up today's episode. We will be back next week at the same time. This is Yeshi signing off on behalf of the entire production team of South Asia Today. Goodbye and take care.